Hi there, Garrett Blevins here with the first public coaching call that I have done. I think in a while. I may have done a public one earlier, but with the free programs going out and some new people being exposed to Bless training, I figured I'd show people what exactly a coaching call is. If you haven't seen one before, it may be kind of strange and you may not know what that service is. So this is what a coaching call is. There's one of these a week, and what this is for is people who are on guided programming or individualized, and what guided programming is. It's an individual program. It's sometimes done as a group. I have run a few groups before, but right now I'm just working with clients individually as they sign up. And they work through a set period of time that we kind of set up phase potentiation for. And the way that I interact with people right now with the way my schedule is I do a weekly coaching call, and you can put in questions or you can put in videos for form review. Most of the time I have people put in just one video for form review per week, but if they put in two and it's just 2 sets, that's okay. But usually 1 to 3 sets per week, preferably in one video where it's edited to where there's not a lot of startup before or after the set. And also some notes on the set, what people are concerned about, or if they just generally want me to look at form, I do that as well. So a few people have volunteered to have their reviews be public, so I want to be appreciative and thankful for all those people. And we also have some pretty decent questions today that are kind of generally applicable, so I think people who are not even on any of my programs may enjoy some of the discussions that follow. So we'll get right into this. I'll pull up our page here. So this is the forum. This is the what the form looks like in the section for the coaching call. And so all you have to do here is just post in this thread. I make 1 thread per week for coaching calls, and then they're numbered. As you can see, this is 49, so this is the 49th coaching call. So learning question: why does the in-season program go from 4 days to 3 days? What is the reasoning, and why do you find this to be optimal? Okay, so for some people, they chose the default, which I do recommend the most and which I use personally, is a 3-day in-season split as opposed to 4 days. Now, there's 2 reasons for this, at least, and there may be others for some other people. First, for me, the reason why I do this is it worked best when I did it this way. When I cut out the volume and I wasn't doing as many variations of the lifts, but I was sticking with more of the competition movements, I lift a lot heavier weights, and so it takes me longer to recover. So, and that's because if I'm doing, if I'm doing a 5x5 with my low bar squat, that's going to be a really, really difficult workout for me. That's really high volume for low bar, and part of that's just because of the heavier weights that I use. If I had a 5x5 beltless high bar squat, that wouldn't be that taxing of a day, or a 5x5 high bar pause squat or something like that. That wouldn't be too bad. It would be a tough day, but it wouldn't be just crushing. Whereas a low bar day like that would really beat me up, just because of the difference in the movements and the way they impact me. And I found that to be consistent with a lot of people. So I'll switch the frequency from 4 days to 3 because I am removing some of the movement training slots out of the program to do that. It's reducing the overall volume and it's increasing the ability to recover. The second reason is sometimes those workouts end up taking quite a bit longer, also because you're working up to heavier weights. And for scheduling reasons, if you have a 3-day week split, it's a lot easier if you have to cut a day short to squeeze in a 4th day where you go to the gym and just finish up anything you missed, instead of having a 4-day split and trying to figure out a 5th or 6th day to get to the gym. If you have a garage gym like I do, it's not too bad. But if you actually have to drive to the gym and, drive home, fight traffic, all that sort of stuff, going to the gym, really the amount of time it takes to get there and get back can impact your schedule. So those are kind of 2 reasons. People can stay on a 4-day or a 5-day split kind of all the way through, but I really, especially in peaking phases, like to start to lower the frequency of the days lifting. So that's just something I've seen work for quite a few people. All right, how do these look? I rated them RPE 6, 7, and 8 for some doubles. All right, check those out. So out there in video land, Sometimes people will ask primarily about RPE, especially if I've spoken with them before about their squat form or if they feel fairly confident in it. Eric has always been a very fast squatter. He descends quickly into the hole, and that's just kind of the way that he does it. But you see how he maintains a very strong back position throughout, especially the second rep there was very good. I would probably still call that second set there RPE 6. I'll be interested to see if RPE or the third set gets to RPE 8, but so far I haven't seen really any bar speed slowing. And the second rep on that second set was the best rep I'd seen from you in this this group of lifts. A little bit of bar speed slowing. Yeah, you could probably call that last rep there a 7.5. It could have been an 8, but I also know that you can grind out squats really well. So that makes it difficult because you can go almost to a dead stop and then continue on. Also have some pause squats in here. See if we have. Okay. Might pause just a little bit longer in the hole, but that one was a little bit better. It had a little bit of a bounce to it, but still moving very well. And this is a fairly solid weight for you to be doing these with. I definitely think you're on point to think that you're making some gains with squats because those are moving really well. No form issues really to speak of. Everything looks really well. Looks good. Looks good. Just watch the hips rising up out of the back of the hole. You don't want them to kick back too much as you start coming out. Part of what you may need to do is let your knees, think about pushing your knees forward out of the hole. That's going to allow you to utilize more quad in the lift. But in general, looking pretty solid, solid set. I'd put that in RP 7, 7.5 tops. All right, next question. Do you recommend foam rolling in general? And if so, should I do it pre or post workout for legs? All right, and follow up, can you link specific videos you recommend for fast, efficient warm-ups for upper and lower days and mobility ones also, and how you should implement that, or how I should implement them in workout before or after? Okay, so in general, with mobility work, especially if you're going to be doing it at the gym, you should do it before as part of your warm-up. I would not spend a lot of time on this though. I would do enough so that you can get into the positions you need to get into to lift efficiently. So if for example, you're doing sumo deadlift, yeah, you can wrap a band around your knee, you know, and walk out a little bit of ways from the band and let it pull your leg out to the side and do some stretching. But if you're doing more than 15 minutes on your warm-up, in my opinion, that's too much. I think it should be pretty quick. There's also some really good videos from Bryce Lewis. I'll put them in the, I think they're, I don't know. I'm not sure where I've put them before. I know I've added them into certain coaching calls, but yeah, I'll put them in the probably the description of this video in YouTube. So those links will be there. I'll just you'll see them in there. But anyways, Bryce has some really good barbell complex warm-ups that he uses. They're fast, they're efficient, and for just full body warm-ups, I like them a lot. Now, if your legs are feeling like really cramped up or tight, and you are you know, like if sitting in a car, they start to kind of feel sore and stuff like that. They just are kind of cramped up in general. Doing some more intensive digging into the muscle, not so much rolling on a foam roller, but getting something really hard like a PVC pipe. Or I have a roller from, I'm trying to remember the company. I think it's Barbell One is the company, but it's rock solid. It's not made of foam. It's like made of wood almost. That's what the texture feels like. But finding a tight spot on your muscle, leaning on it, and then letting that dig into the muscle for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and just not moving it around too much, just finding a tight spot and just having that foam roller dig in. Your pain level for something like that should be at like a 7 out of 10. It should be fairly uncomfortable, but certainly not unbearable, certainly not gritting your teeth. But sometimes after a lot of heavy work, especially if I've been a little dehydrated, my muscles will tighten up more than usual. And I'll have to lay on a foam roller and let that dig into my quads for quite a while before I finally have that myofascial release where the muscle twitches and then releases, and it can relax. But that is important, and that's something you would do after your workouts. It doesn't have to be right after. It's kind of when you have time. But you also want to be careful because when you dig in and you do that kind of intensive massage, you want to try to not have a workout that really taxes that muscle the next day. Try to have 24 hours in between that and your next workout at least. And don't pick a really heavy day to do that. So that is what I have to say about that. All right, trying a couple new cues for the squat. Well, they feel great. I was curious if you had heard of them in your opinion. First cue was to squeeze your glutes hard at the top. This really brings my hips under the bar and actually brings my heels in, points my toes out exactly where they need to be. Yeah, it sounds like it can be overdone. I'm just going to say, first off, that cue can be overdone and cause some SI joint pain if you're overextending and arching through. However, if you're just getting tight, setting your hips and externally rotating, which is what you're describing there with your heels and your toes, you're screwing your feet into the ground, that's great. That's awesome. Just don't overextend that because it can lead to some, it's like a tailbone. Your SI joint's right in there where your tailbone is, it's lower back area. And you can start to get some aggravation there if you kind of overlock out. All right. Second cue is to initiate the descent by spreading the knees rather than breaking at the hips. That one also can work sometimes. If you're actually throwing your knees way out to the side, then it's a bad cue. But if you were used to your knees traveling really far forward instead of kind of sitting back into the squat, then it can be a good cue for you. These two cues together with the external rotation and spreading the knees probably is going to put you in a pretty good position. Again, cues are very individual because what somebody cues and what they actually end up doing physiologically sometimes is not the same thing. Sometimes it feels like knees are tracking out when really they're just tracking straight instead of tracking in, and those sorts of issues. So, yeah, and so this, you feel absolutely no tension on the lower back or tailbone, probably because you're setting your hips better. You're getting tight in a better way. It sounds like it's working for you. Part of the things about cues is if it's working for you and it's feeling good, keep going with it. I am interested to see what the video looks like, so we'll check this out. You rated these at RP8, so I'm expecting to see a little bit of bar speed slowing somewhere. With high bar, you don't see as much slowing as low bar usually. It's hard to grind out a high bar squat. But I should see a little bit of slowing here somewhere. Walkout's very solid. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I don't think I have any issues at all. I don't know if you filmed the second set from the back. I want to kind of see your knee angle. You can film from the back or the front for that. But these look very solid. I think that looked good. And I also, maybe an RP8, probably somewhere around 7.5 maybe. Just want to look back at this one more time. Just track bar path. See, you got a little bit forward there, but not much. This is a very, very solid set. Yeah. If anything, when you're tightening up, show you, this is going to be very minor. You might just be a little bit too far forward. I'm talking very minor amount. I don't even know if it's worth adjusting. Just be aware that you don't want to arch backwards. As you tighten the glutes, don't arch here, but it doesn't look like that's what you're doing. If it's taking pressure off and everything else as far as knees looks good. So if it's taking pressure off, keep going with it. Keep working on that. That looks very good. All right. On your 10-week, 4-day per week program, can you offer any guidance on how many days of rest there should be between workouts? Did workouts 2 and 3 within 24 hours due to work schedule? And my RPEs were much higher than they should have been. Any thoughts would be appreciated. Absolutely. If you're noticing that your RPEs are rating higher than the program because you have to adjust frequency due to time constraints or schedules, and it's a 4-day per week program, so some of the days are going to knock up against each other anyways. All you need to do, use a little bit lighter weights. Just track in the notes what you changed and why you changed them for future training cycles. But again, as with any template, you're going to need to adjust. And that's why even on this kind of quote unquote percentage-based program, there are still RPEs listed. The reason there are RPEs listed is we should always have auto regulation. It doesn't need to be crazy auto regulation, but Given this sort of situation, it's completely acceptable to maybe even knock off a set if you're really hitting high RPEs and lower the weight a little bit. And again, I'm talking about lowering those weights like 5% from where they're at and seeing what that does. 5% should kick you down an RPE of anywhere from half an RPE to 1 RPE. So yeah, it also might be just that you're working through the program and you're just kind of new to the volume, and so it may take a week or two or maybe more to get used to it, in which case you should still knock off one set here or there and lower the intensity. So yeah, no matter what the issue is, that's the right call if you're feeling overworked and under recovered. That said, as far as days rest in between, if I was doing that program, I would probably put a day of rest in between workouts 1 and 2. I would probably do 2 and 3 next to each other. I would have another day of rest between workout 3 and 4, and then I would take the rest of the week off and then go back in the next week for day 1. That's how I would do the 4-day split. I would prioritize day 1, and I would put days 2 and 3 next to each other. Yeah, so that's how I would do it. If you needed to move some of the benching from day 3 to day 4 because there's less on day 4, that would be acceptable as well. You can move those exercises around. Again, just write in the notes what you did so that you could better recover from it. But that's what I would do. All right. Squat, 7.5 or 8. Find out. Might want to lock out your knees a little bit more on the walkout, kind of try to keep this body angle. If you walk out with your knees bent like that, it just puts a little bit more pressure into your quads and will fatigue them a little bit. Yeah, I would probably put this at a 7.5. As I watched this, definitely had 2 more reps. Might have had 3 more reps. I would call that 7.5. Everything on it looks pretty good. You do a good job of expanding your belly into the belt there, and you hold a very strong position throughout. It's a little difficult because of the angle of the camera. Depth is right at where it would be legal, so just keep working. That looks real solid. All right. Bench from the side as I asked. Excellent. Also got a quick question about the percentage-based program as I'm nearing the end of it. I was wondering why the accessories stay the same volume and don't lower as we approach meet day. It's not bothering me or hindering me whatsoever. I just got asked a few times in the gym, so I was curious why, so I would understand better. One of the things about when you peak for a meet, there's already the program. There's a few reasons. As you can see, my brain is processing quickly. One of the reasons is the assistance work is not that taxing. There's low RPEs throughout the program. There's also a deload week in which you have almost no assistance work, and that's where most of your recovery comes from. But because it's only a 10-week cycle, you didn't have enough time to really dig yourself deep into fatigue. And there's like a deload every 3rd week on every exercise or every movement because it's following a kind of a power, strength, speed sort of protocol. And so you're deloading movements throughout the program, so you never over fatigue at any one point. That said, you don't want to detrain as you go into a meet or into a mock meet in the gym. And so I didn't cut out the accessory work because I don't want to detrain you. And it's very hard to overwork on this program. It's possible, but it's pretty low volume, which may surprise some people, but it is a fairly low volume program, though it is high frequency. There's not a lot of sets per day, and that kind of goes together. You can't be doing a ton of sets and a ton of frequency. But again, there's also that speed work that's throughout the program, and that's why there's not just as much of an actual removing of sets, except for that last week, that 10th week. So that's the week that'll be easy. If it doesn't work for you, again, as I've mentioned in this video, notes are very important. Write that down, say, hey, I was still feeling tired. You have said here it doesn't seem to be bothering you, so I don't think that would be your case. But if it was, and it could bother somebody who is less volume tolerant, such as myself, if I was going through the program, I'd probably have to start cutting some stuff out. But that's because I'm right now not very volume tolerant. My recovery is abysmal right now just because of all the life stress and obligations and work and everything. So it's just tough right now to recover. But in any case, yeah, you would write that down, and then in the next training cycle, you would adjust. And that's something where, especially if you write down how you're feeling, why having a coach or somebody who can guide you through the programming can help you. Just based on the short little response here, I'd say you're going to be in very good shape. But anyways, something to keep in mind, and a great question. We got 100 kilograms for RP7. Let's see. RP7, I expect to see a little bit of bar speed slowing. Just a minor amount, but I can tell that it's not an RP6, which I would say has no bar speed slowing. Slight struggle off the chest, probably an RP7. Might have been a little lower. I don't know how hard you can grind through that lower part, but the reason why we're watching this video is to check these elbows. So what I'm seeing, it looks pretty good. I remember, if I remember correctly, but I'm thinking I remember that you had very wide elbows in your benching. This looks pretty good. I would like to see one thing you could work on. I'll give you this, and this is about all I can say because it looks pretty solid, pretty squared away, would be to get like a lacrosse ball. Tennis balls aren't quite hard enough, but like a lacrosse ball is good. Baseballs are okay, but they have the seams on them, which can be kind of annoying. But something very hard and round, and work around your scapulas, in between your spine and your scapula, and work all the way around your scapula. And make sure that those are loosened up so that you can really tuck your shoulders down. If you were able to tuck and roll your shoulders in a little bit more, you would be able to tuck this elbow slightly more, and we get a little bit more tricep out of this. The reason why I say this is just based on where the bar is touching. It's pretty far away from your shoulder, and I would really like to see the bar touching closer to your shoulder. However, that can't happen unless you can rotate with your scapula and tuck your whole shoulder under a little bit more, like rotating that arm, like squishing your tricep into your lat would be another way of thinking it, kind of squishing your armpit down as you bring your chest up. That said, this looks pretty good. As you reverse the weight, there's a little bit of elbow back, but that's also just in line with the bar. You're bringing the whole bar back. This does, however, put a lot of pressure on this part of your front delt and your chest where it connects, and it can also lead to some stalling in the bench press as you're not using a ton of triceps. You're really not using any triceps almost for this first part of the lift. And so adding in close grip as a variation that you use in the off season is going to be important to help training yourself, but also working on some scapular mobility. I'm not sure how far you would be able to go with your scapulas. That's a morphology question, but I think that's what I would advise trying to do, and just try to dig in. If it's super painful around your scapula, it probably means you got some knots and things back there holding you back. Another way to open up and get underneath the scapula, your shoulder blade, is to, if you take, let's say you're going to work on your right scapula, take your arm, your right arm, bring it across your body and hold it with your other arm. So you're kind of doing an arm bar to yourself across your body. That is going to rotate your scapula out to the side so that you'll be able to get that lacrosse ball or whatever into there. You may not be able to just lay on the ground and do it. You may need to put the ball on a wall and then lean against it so that you can control the pressure more. In any case, that's what I would advise. Bench looks pretty good. This is what I was hoping I would see as we film from the side. I think you're on point with your RPE, so keep up the good work. Looks good. All right. Well, that's what a coaching call is for all of you people out there. You get to ask questions, and I do my best to answer them as thoroughly as I can. Sometimes the questions are more specific to programs and workouts. And especially if it's a technical thing, people can email me directly. I'll often advise people to do that if it's something I need to actually adjust. But most of the time, I'm just guiding you through how to do that. Again, this is once a week. There's also, as part of the program, there's a Facebook group where Brandon Campbell is much more present. I handle most of the forum stuff myself, and Brandon Campbell and Ben Rice at times when we're working together will be on the Facebook group. So That's where you can ask a little bit simpler questions. Also, the community is very good about just jumping in and answering questions if they've been asked before, and people know the answers to those questions. But in any case, I hope you all enjoyed this coaching call. For people who are not clients, if you want to post comments in this coaching call about what you would like to see in a coaching call or what you think would improve the service, I really like those recommendations. It's good to know what people out there are interested in. So feel free to put that down there. I'd appreciate it. And I hope you got something out of this call. In any case, I hope wherever you're at, you're doing well. Blessings.